G'day everybody, I'm Sam Marwood. I live just down the road from Bendigo in Kyneton, and I started a business called Cultivate Farms, which hopefully some people have heard about. And I started it with some good mates of mine, and we have, by starting this business, uncovered the power of social media. And we are always talking about how amazing social media is and how powerful it is for us starting our business. And here, specifically today, I'll talk about how it's powerful for aspiring farmers, which I haven't seen a presentation with that sort of angle to it before. So hopefully it's interesting today. I'll have some ideas from just anyone running a business, but also I'll work through from an aspiring farmer point of view. So I grew up on a dairy farm just north of Bendigo in a town called Dingy, and I went on a journey of wanting to be a farmer, but knowing that it's very expensive to buy a farm, and my parents weren't going to give me the farm, so I went and did other things, and realized after a while that this idea of owning a farm is so powerful. And so for the last 5 years we've been unpacking this concept of making it possible for young people to own a farm, and that I'll go through a bit of the journey today, but mainly be focusing on the power of social media and what a great time in history it is to be alive, to start a business, and to have the access to social media to get your story out there. I want to thank Sally and Alison and Tam for pulling this together. We've had a few run-throughs to make sure the tech is working, and I think it is. We're going to do a couple of breakout room sessions. So we want to get you interacting and discussing ideas and still having that meetup outcome from these gatherings, even though we're virtual. So what I'll talk about is the power of social media. I want to give you a stack of practical ideas of how you can use social media, and they might be a bit provoking. Hopefully, gets you thinking. You might think they're a little bit crazy, but for me, they've been fundamental to us getting our business off the ground. I'll talk about Cultivate Farms itself, and then the last one is particularly targeted at aspiring farmers. But there'll be ideas in there for anyone with a business around, if I were an aspiring farmer, what would I be doing with social media to get myself into my own farm and get in touch with those people who can make my farming dreams a reality. So these are the key points for me, is that and I'll unpack why I think this, but it's the best time in history to be alive and to be starting a business, even being an aspiring farmer. This is about documenting your journey. So I think when people talk about social media or themselves, they think, oh, I'm not the expert in this. But what I've realized, and one of my inspirations is a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk that some people may have heard about. He's a crazy entrepreneur from America. And he talked about this concept of social media and just documenting your journey, that you don't have to be the expert in a topic. You just need to document your journey and learning and understanding and sharing your ideas. And through that, maybe over time, you become the expert. But that frees you up. This idea of documenting rather than having the answers is such a powerful concept that I really believe in. And then social media, itself is just ridiculous, the reach it gives you, and it's sitting there for everyone to use. And there's never been a time in history that you can have access to people so readily than through social media. So they're my three key points for this whole presentation. There we go. So why is it the best time in history to be alive? I love taking a step back and just thinking about where we are in human history. We have the internet. It's been around for, is it 20 years, I think? Or maybe a bit longer. But we can access people. You can type in Google and find anyone and get their email address. And then tied to the internet is social media. We can access people and create content, and everyone's on their iPhones and watching social media, TikTok, on Facebook, and getting content. And you can put content out there. In the old days, you had to write an article and somehow get it in the paper, or you had to print pamphlets and do mail drop-offs. Right now, you can access anyone. So it's just really exciting. And we couldn't have started our business without social media. I don't know how you would have done it. There's no gatekeepers. You don't have to convince anybody. You can do a $5 Facebook ad and get to your people you want. We're in a rich, wealthy country, and so we can try things, and there's opportunities around. We're in a time of peace, but I think the biggest one is everyone's got a phone, and that's where all this content is consumed and being created, and it's so powerful, unbelievably powerful. And I try and when I'm having bad days, I try and sit back and think about all these points to keep me going, to realize, my grandparents didn't have opportunities like this. to start their business and stop complaining and get on and utilize what's in front of you. So my thesis or hypothesis is that opportunities come to you in business through getting attention. You need to get attention of people to buy, use your service, give you ideas. And the best way at the moment, and this is a temporal thing, is through getting attention, is social media. Like years ago, it could have been through TV or radio, but it is absolutely social media at the moment. In the future, it'll be doing holograms or whatever it will be. But at the moment, social media just is that place where attention's at, and that's where you need to be. And that's where we've learnt we needed to be. And it's about finding those people who, and not about getting millions of followers on social media. It's about getting enough for you to sell your product or your service. You don't have to convince everybody. And again, that's another freeing concept. You don't need a massive audience to be able to get your business really humming. Here's a blurry picture, but it's a bit of to try to get some stats, and there's plenty of them around how much people are using their smartphone, and tied to that is how much they're on social media. But this is probably a bit too busy, but it just outlines most people using their phone when they're on public transport, when they're at work, watching TV. You're always on your phone, like you're watching your phone when the ads are on. You're out shopping, you're on the phone. Even while driving, down the bottom there's got while driving, and people are using their phone, which is a bit scary. I thought everyone is on their phone. You would be on your phone now, and you probably are if you got your video off. Yep, everyone's got their phone right there, consuming content, and it's there for you free to get access to people. And so it just makes imminent sense to be getting content out onto social media, onto people's phones, and opportunities come through being where their attention is at. There's no point complaining that people aren't reading newspapers as much anymore or listening to radio. It's just go where their attention is and build content around that. So what do we mean, or how do you go about building and using social media? That concept of documenting your journey, I think, is so key. And I still remember the podcast I listened to with Gary Vaynerchuk talking about documenting your journey. And it was a real light bulb moment for me. And I started doing Facebook Live videos. And the idea of it first just scared the hell out of me. But now I get on Facebook Live all the time. And I'm just documenting what we're up to and talking about where we're at with Cultivate Farms and a new idea we've had and asking people questions. And over time, we're becoming experts in this farm matching concept. But at the start, we definitely weren't. And it was so empowering that I had now a ready source of content, because it wasn't me having to go do research and everything. It's me just learning and sharing and just where I'm at. And people really love it. Like some people, they say, we feel like we're friends with you, Sam, because we've watched you and it's so raw and live, that we feel like we're interacting. And that's a real beauty of it, I think people nowadays don't want polished content as much. They want to see the real thing. And so documenting just frees you up to get this content out there. Social media is the cornerstone of all of this. And then patience is probably the other key one, that it takes a long time to build an audience. We've got something like 7,500 people on Facebook, which isn't massive, but it takes years, and every day I watch to see where we're at. But that's heaps for the niche market we're in. And it takes time, and some posts don't do well and others do really well, but it's just patience, constant being out there. And I find, especially with what we're doing, which is a little bit different, people they comment all the time, I watch your content, I watch what you're doing, you're always there, you're always providing ideas. And I finally decided to reach out to you. And I don't know the stats, but people talk about, an idea has to be in front of you 7 times before you're going to reach out and jump onto it, or an opportunity. And that's what I feel like we're doing, is creating this content, documenting a journey, putting it on social media, and then being patient. And even if you don't have massive followers, it's like, create content, keep creating it. And hopefully if you're selling something that's useful and good, it'll build. And that's been our thesis. And it's really, it's been 5 years in, and we're still learning and a long way to go. But that patience is a key thing for me as well, just to know that this does take time, and it will not be an overnight thing. Why social media? Because there are no gatekeepers. I've talked about that quickly. This is where your audience is at. It is free. It's ridiculous. This is free, and everyone's on it. And it creates an ability for you to interact with people. People comment, you do messenger, and you have interaction with the audience. It's just ridiculous. This also was a really empowering thing to think through. It's, creating content can be a bit of an overwhelming concept, especially, and I'll talk about this from an aspiring farmer point of view around how you create content to get onto your farm. And I know a lot of farmers just get really, it's a bit awkward, and I don't create content. This is not what I do. And I hate the idea of getting in front of a camera. But this is about figuring out what you are good at and what you're comfortable at. And some people are happy doing videos, and videos are a really great way of doing content. That's what I choose as the first point of creating content, because I can turn that into a blog, into a podcast, and all the various videos, and cut up the videos, etc. It has all those components of content that I can pull out. So for me, I'm used to video and I really like it. But if you don't like being in front of a camera, you can do audio, or you can do photos, or you do written content. It's just figuring out what you're comfortable with in terms of creating content, and also matching up probably with your audience and how they like to consume things. But this to me was amazing. So I started writing at the start, doing blogs, and I still do them, but now I do all of them. I have a podcast and have heaps of videos on YouTube. But just knowing that you just pick the types of content that you are comfortable doing, and putting your effort behind is a powerful thing, and again, a freeing thing to know you don't have to do content on all these types of mediums. And people talk about, what type of content, how long does content have to be? And I think we're in an age of who knows. No doubt you probably listen to YouTube or podcasts that go for hours. And sometimes you listen to things that are for 10 seconds. I don't think there's any rules anymore. I think because it's so cheap to get stuff out, and you can just try things. And that's what we do. We've got snippets and we've got long form, and we just put it out there, and there's no real logic around what people like and what they don't. But over time, you'll learn what works well. So whether it's 10 seconds or an hour, where it's 140 characters or 10,000 words, whether it's a live video, whether it's creating tips and doing little bits of advice on how to do things. But there's just so many different ways you can, and types of content. Don't let people stop you. And that's probably the big thing that I'm finding, is that you don't have friends or other businesses doing this, and you think, it's a bit weird what I'm doing. And people, alternatively, people go, no, you've got to keep it short, keep it to 30 seconds. People don't have an attention span. You've got to keep it short. It's like, well, test it. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe long form is fine. Who knows? And because it's free and it's there, you can do these things. Just put it up there and see what happens. So again, just a lot of what I'm thinking about, and probably what our business is around, removing barriers. And this is a mental barrier that you need to remove for yourself, is, I've got to make sure the content's perfect, or a set amount of time. We're just finding that, no, there's no real rules. This is a whole new world, social media. Get out there and try and just see what is uncovered as you go about it. Where can you create this content? I think, here, these are all the platforms, and we create content on all these platforms, and we really encourage people who are on there. And that, again, was an overwhelming concept when I heard this Gary Vaynerchuk guy. He says he pumps out content on all the platforms, and he doesn't dictate where people can get his content. Go where they are, and that's why we've got the same mentality. We create and put on all these. LinkedIn is massive. It's probably like Facebook 10 years ago in terms of the reach you can get. And you can just use the same content on these different platforms. But we're a big believer in just pumping out content on all of them. So I'll talk about Cultivate Farms, and then I want to do a bit of a breakout and get you to think about what might scare you with what I'm talking about, or what you think is a little bit crazy, and get a discussion going around that. We'll have a second breakout as well. So just keep thinking about what I'm saying that is resonating or is not resonating. So Cultivate Farms, about 5 years ago, was catching up with some friends, Tim and Tegan Hicks, and they said they wanted to own a farm, but they didn't have millions of dollars. And they said, what if there was a business that helped to buy farms for young people? And I just clicked straight away, having, as I said, not been given my farm from my family. I'm one of 6 kids, and Tam's on this call as well, one of my sisters. And I knew I'd never get the farm anyway. So kids like me at 8 years old are getting told you're not going to own a farm, and they go off and do something else the rest of their life. And the idea that we could say, no, you can own a farm. You just don't do it the traditional way of, saving up millions of dollars and trying to buy it. You need to be matched with people who either have a farm, a retiring farmer, or an investor. So investors could be locals or your family or friends. But you need to be matched with someone who you can partner with to own a farm. And that's the concept of Cultivate Farms. We bring people together. We're a matchmaker to co-own and figure out a deal around owning a farm together. We're finding a lot of retiring farmers don't have kids to hand the farm onto and don't want to leave. They love their farm and they love the idea of finding a young couple like them that they could hand the farm onto. And we're finding aspiring farmers, and I'll talk about our stats in a second, and investors. And a lot of this, what we're doing is a bit new, a little bit weird. And that's why I believe so much in this content, because we are creating a market we're creating a new idea and trying to sell it. So that just relies on us creating content constantly with ideas around this, trying to get retiring farmers to think differently, to know it's even possible to age on farm and co-own with an aspiring farmer. And the same thing with aspiring farmers who have had great dreams crushed. I've got to create content to get them inspired enough to keep following their farm dreams. And then there's people with money in the bank who would love to own a farm but have no idea what that means, and they don't know that they want it. And I need to convince them that they need to be buying a farm with a young farmer or an aspiring farmer. So that's why I guess I believe in this content so much, because it's a bit of a weird business I've got, and I've got to create the momentum myself. And having social media is just massive. So we do a matchmaking basically, and we never set out to be the Tinder of farming. It just happened to be that's what it is. And we had the joke that we could be eFarmony, but it was the URL was too expensive, so we just stuck with Cultivate Farms. Sorry, it freezes every now and then. Let me keep going. We'll be stuck on this matchmaking forever. Here we go. So mission, I was talking about before, our mission is breaking down barriers, and mostly that is around removing mental barriers, which we're talking about here around social media, what's stopping you creating content. A lot of this with aspiring and retiring farmers is breaking down barriers for why they're not chasing their dreams. I was talking to a young farmer just before, and it's probably the second or third time we've talked about it, that no one ever gets backed by an investor onto a farm. It's never happened here. And it's this, well, why not? Why can't it? There's no legal or technical reason why that can't happen. Let's get rid of those barriers and let's make it happen. So that's a lot of what we do, breaking down mental barriers. Our momentum, we've got 1,200 aspiring farmers. We've done 13 matches, which doesn't seem like much, but it is hard work making these matches, and we've got about 25 ready to be matched across Australia, and a lot more cool things happening in the background. We've run, I think it's the world's first, I love saying that, world first anyway, farm investor incubator, or farmer incubator, where we've got 10 farmers going through a program where they'll pitch to an investor who will back one of them. And we did that program about 2 years ago and backed a young farmer with an investor, which is super cool. Like knowing there are people out there wanting to back these farmers. Our attention is growing. People want to talk to us, and farmers are reaching out to us. And I think this is all tied into this point here around 400 plus videos. It's just by creating content, proving we are legitimate, proving constantly we really want this. We really want solutions for young farmers, and it's possible. And it's just relentless, persistent content that is breaking down barriers for us, which just encourage others to think in that mindset. Tactics that we adopt. So we do Facebook Live is probably the main vehicle for creating content. Jumping on there, having that live component initially was really scary for me, but now I love the value of it. It's like this presentation now, you can see I'm a real person and I'm interacting and I stuff up, and it's fine. And people like it. And then I can cut that into little segments and post them on blogs and into the YouTube as well. We post 5 times a day on 7 platforms. I think that's roughly what it is. We've got month out content ready to go. We've got one person full time, which is massive because not all of us work on this business full time. But we realised we need one person on social media to keep things going, which is really a really massive asset. But we realise that is the cornerstone of our business. We interview people, we interview aspiring farmers. I even record conversations I have on the phone with aspiring farmers, and I haven't quite created content out of that, but I've got about 100 phone calls, which is just gold sitting there. I've got to cut up one day and just talking about the real issues of aspiring farmers. And as I'm talking on this, it's just amazing content that I've got to get out. We do a weekly newsletter. We've got about 7,000 followers now, which is really powerful for us. We can put promotions out and people are watching it and reading it. When we get new ideas, I really love doing this, is we have a new idea, I make a note, and our weekly update, I just talk about it and just show momentum. And like some of these ideas I'm not even sure are going to come through, but we are working on them. And I think that's what people enjoy, is that interaction. And now that we've got all this content, like this 400 videos, how many blogs we've got, we're going to write a book, and it's all sitting there. The hardest thing is going to be pulling it all together. But the content's written, and it's just getting someone clever to help mash it all together, which again, to me, is so powerful. Like the idea of writing books really full on, but now it's just a cut and paste of all our core ideas that we've been documenting. So what we're going to do now is break up into breakout rooms, hopefully about 3 people per room. And I just have to escape from the presentation, I think. And the question is, what makes you nervous about what we've been talking about here? And no doubt it will, no doubt you'll be skeptical, which is great. But want to just get discussions going amongst the group, or Sally and Tam, Alison, anything else to jump in before we do that? Or we go for it?
Well, we had a good question come in from Tam, but we can circle back to it. And that was just where do you get your ideas from? Because sometimes can't think of anything, just your content ideas.
It's a really good question, and through interactions with the farmers and investors and retiring and the people I deal with every day, just things pop up and go, for them that was a really interesting concept, so therefore it must be interesting to everyone else. And I just make a list, and then before I do my Facebook Live, I sit there with my 5 ideas and I sit there typing it out, so I've got content as well, and then pump it out. But it's just through everyday life, and also knowing that I need to create content as well helps me think about what content I need to create. So just knowing I've got this rolling need to create makes me think more. Shall we do it? So the question is, what makes you nervous? I think do a quick intro of yourselves. Hopefully people have done this before. If not, it's a really cool feature of Zoom. And then just someone kick it off with what makes you nervous with what we're talking about. And then we'll come back and we'll keep going. Hello, is everyone back?
Sam, I thought it might be an idea for everybody to put in the chat just the key things that we came back with.
That'd be great, and have a discussion while I'm talking, online and by the chat. I was reading through some of the questions as well, and I'm sure that discussions were great. If I don't know if we want to just keep moving, Sally, or do you want to get people to yell out, or just do it by chat? I assume. Let's just do that.
Can I just say, Sam, I'd really love to listen to what you're saying. I'm going to have trouble reading stuff and listening to you at the same time. So I'm going to focus on listening to you, if that's okay.
Right. And this is all being recorded as well, so we'll be able to listen back. We'll create content out of it.
Can we get access to the chat afterwards? I don't think we can we?
We can copy and paste it. I can keep that. I can save that.
That's great.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, if that's the case, is there anybody that has any burning things that they want to share before Sam starts again?
It'd be great to hear one.
Can I just say very quickly, when you were talking, Sam, about having posting 5 times a day on 7 platforms, that is what makes me nervous. That is just completely overwhelming. That is not so much coming up with content, but that amount of exposure I would find really challenging, and maintaining that I would think I would feel quite exhausted by that.
Yep, me too. I do feel exhausted from it many days, but that's why we've got someone working full time, and also we repeat content. So some of our content is evergreen, and people say it's a bit of a risk repeating, but farms we promote, we repeat every month, and so after a while, you build this really nice backlog. So at the start, it can be really overwhelming, but after a while, it's fine. And we've got this eClincher is a tool we use that you can load all this up in the back end and just clicks through on the day as needed. But it is absolutely overwhelming to think through.
You do it by yourself at the start when you didn't have a team, when it was just you. How did you do it?
I would only do a couple of posts, probably a day, Sam. Yeah, it was only till we got someone on board, and it took a while even with them to figure out, yes, that's absolutely achievable. And it put a big demand on me to be able to create that content up front as well. But now it's just a maintenance thing that we just make sure we get rid of the stuff that isn't evergreen, and make sure we're creating enough fresh stuff so people know it's the current me, not the old me, and just keep it rolling. But yeah, it definitely needs support. But I'd argue it really is worth the money to get someone in to support you. There's a question there around you know, if you're the CEO, should you be the one creating the content? And I really believe that it should be you creating the content and thinking about this. That's why I say I think as a business, you're a media company first that happens to sell something. And if you have that mentality, then it's definitely up to the CEO to be the one leading this and putting themselves out there to you know, give people confidence in the product, but also show everyone that this is about getting attention, and attention leads to opportunities and sales. That's my thesis anyway. I'm not the expert, but we're having a crack. So I'll keep moving.
Are you in a friendly market space too? It sounds like you are.
That's right. Yeah, and there's not many competitors with what we're doing. So I don't really get many knockbacks. So that might be another thing that makes people nervous, is that you get people criticizing you or you know, knocking you down. And that's definitely a big thing. We get it every now and then, and you know, you really take it to heart, but you realize everyone else gets it as well. And you know, it's also, well, how much are you going to let other people dictate your life? That, you know, there's a lot of philosophical thinking I do around all of this. And when you get a negative comment or someone, you know, bagging you out, it's like, well, you know, who are they to tell me whether I'm doing a good or a bad thing? I think most people do, and you can't let that slow you down, or you can't let the chance that someone might think you're annoying or arrogant, or you know, you post too much, stop you from following your dream. I think that's what drives me. Is I really want to make an impact in the landscape of Australia, and I think we've got a real ability to do that. And I don't want someone who I don't know to stop me from realizing that dream. I'm going to make it happen. And I think that's the sort of mentality, no doubt, all of you have with your businesses or getting on your farm. Like, how much do you really want it? And this is what we talk about a lot with our aspiring farmers when we talk about, you should be creating content, which is what we're about to talk about now. They're like, oh, should I? It's like, well, how much do you want this? How much do you want it? And I think, you know, because it's such a valuable and amazing thing, creating content on social media is the best way to make opportunities happen. You know, obviously you can make them happen other ways, but that's just the bent I have now, is that the social media is just amazing and we should be utilizing it.
Can I jump into, I thought Theo put up a good comment there about he's nervous about, you know, the time and effort that's involved in creating content, and he might be moving on to this, Sam, and then all these different channels to market, but maybe not getting the return on it, like maybe not connecting with that audience.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, and I don't think you will. You might not get return for 3 years. Like, I don't think I'm getting as much return as I ever expected, and I've been doing it for 5. And I'm okay with that, because I just know this is a long-term thing. I think about 50, 60, 70 years impact I want to make, and it's not going to happen overnight. Everyone talks about it. Things don't happen overnight. It's just about persistence, rocking up every day, creating, and opportunities come. But yeah, and then it's figuring out, have you got enough money to be able to cover someone to do this in the short term, knowing that it might not bring in income, but it may as well. Like, there's all this double guessing around what may or may not work.
Just followed up by asking, what percentage of time do you put into content marketing or marketing education? And
so I don't curate any of my content anymore. So I just create, and then the team put it out, and I barely check my content. Just the team we're in a role. So my focus is just create, and then we cut up in our usual way. Does that answer the question? I probably was off track there, Tam.
just percentage of time.
So probably very little now. Probably 1 or 2 hours a week is creating new content. Me personally, but with our social media guru, she's full time. And it's not just social media she's working on, it's creating other content, etc.
Sam, there was a question about what do farmers use for their what's their most popular social media platform?
It's a really good question, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I think it's the same as the general population. Like even people say to me, no, don't create content on Facebook because retiring farmers aren't there. But they are. Everyone's nearly on social media, and if they're not on there, their daughter or son or their next door neighbour is, and they'll share it. So I think Facebook probably is, if you had to choose one, would be the best. Again, it just depends where you are. TikTok, I'm not on TikTok, but I need to be, and I think that's where the next generation are. But that's probably a bit scary thinking about using TikTok. But I'd say LinkedIn and Facebook, if you had to choose two right now, are just the best at getting out there. And I think that's where farmers and anyone are.
We are getting a few questions through now. I don't know if you can see them coming through, Sam. Andrew's asking what challenges you face operating a social enterprise in the ag tech space. I guess, you're very much about relationships and not so much, those.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in this really funny nexus of we don't own farms and we're not selling products onto farms, and we're not in the the content space. We're in this sort of getting people onto farms who aren't on farms. So it's a bit of a funny space to be in. We're getting everyone says a great idea and good on you and good luck. And we have a lot of people watching. That's probably my feel, is that we have a lot of people watching and who haven't jumped, who haven't gotten contact. And slowly that's changing, and I get the same story. I've been watching for so long and finally decided to reach out. And good on you, and thank you so much for what you do. So I guess the challenge is continuing to create content even when you're not getting that feedback from people. But I know they are watching, and I know I'm helping people, and I guess just getting little feedbacks here and there from people is enough to keep me going, and we've got enough revenue to keep going as well. But probably the biggest challenge is persistence in a bit of a new and a weird space. It just is persistence is what I've learned is the biggest challenge to keep at it. So I'll keep going just because I'm conscious of running out of time. So my next point now that I've talked about Cultivate is to pretend I'm an aspiring farmer. One day maybe I will be. So what I want to do is throw ideas at what I would do if I was trying to find a farm to own. So my aim, so at the moment let's say I'm a farm manager, and I want 10,000 acres in central New South Wales, or let's say northern Victoria. That's my target. I want to own 10,000 acres. I need to convince a retiring farmer who doesn't have kids to hand the farm on to, or doesn't want to give it to their kids, and convince them that I'm the best, or I want an investor to back me. So I need to create content, and I think that I need to be on there on my farm. I need to get permission from the farmer that I work for, but I want to basically document my life on that farm and show people, and I'll just back to that first slide, show people that I'm passionate, that I really want this, that I know how to farm, and I want to provide some practical advice and maybe inspire some other farmers as well. But my main intent is to convince somebody watching that has watched me, the 10th video, they've seen me, and they call up their Auntie Mary and say, hey, you should should work with this farmer, Sam. He seems like a great farmer, and have a chat with him. He wants to own a farm, and you want to step back. So I want to create content. I want to create awareness so that opportunities come to me. Who am I trying to convince? It's retiring farmers, investors, farm advisors, so I want real estate, agronomists, bankers, anyone who has access to retirement age farmers or investors. And I want community champions, so people in the community who want to bring young people back onto the land, who want to keep retirement age farmers on their farms and support their community. So they're the sort of 4 targets that I think about when I'll be creating this content. And so hopefully if you're an aspiring farmer, this is a bit of a inspiration for you that there are some cool things you can be doing to speed up this timeline to get you onto your farm. So tactics, I want to document, as I talked about. I'm going to document my journey on the farm. I'm going to sit there with TikTok, and I saw that guy in Northwest Victoria who's an internet sensational on TikTok, and he talks to his llama, and just it's just funny. And he's documenting his journey, and he's already on a farm, so he's probably doing it for other reasons. But I'll be out there every day. I'll be talking about, here's a water pump's broken. Here's what I'm doing. Or I had this thought about how to manage land, and I get on Instagram. I do it on Facebook Live and just talk about my journey. I wouldn't always be saying, hey, I want a farm. I'd probably do it once every 10 posts or once every 20. I'll get a vibe for it. But that would be the bottom line here. Hey, I would love anyone who knows a farm that could be available, a retiring farmer or an investor. Let me know. I'm open for it. But here's my journey and documenting it. I would sit there whilst watching what's coming up. Big Brother's coming up. I'd sit there if I don't watch it. But anyway, a TV show is up, and I'd be there on Twitter and at the same time searching farming in around Kyneton, and I'd be responding to every single comment around related to that and trying to provide value and be useful in that farming space. I would create a Facebook marketplace ad about myself. I had a picture of me and I'd say farm wanted, and I'd be refreshing that so you can only have it up there for a month. Every month I'd load it up again and keep it there waiting for someone to finally, because everyone who doesn't scroll through Marketplace or Gumtree looking for opportunities, and to see a cheeky little ad like that, I think opportunities would come. I would do those weekly updates. I know Sam Trethui, if anyone follows him, he does that on his LinkedIn. He's a farmer in Tasmania, and everyone loves it. He just sits there and goes, here's the weekly wrap. And people will just gobble it up. It's so good. I would do some newspaper ads. They're probably a bit expensive, so maybe I might actually use Facebook ads. For $20, $10, I can target every single retirement age farmer in 80k radius of where I live or where I want to farm, and I'd do little ads saying, "Hey, I would love to work with you." I'd figure out exactly the language I'd use. More tactics. I'd do a media release. I would have a media release sitting there ready to take to the local newspapers and be annoying and talk about something new that's happened. But the first off is that this idea, and the value here is, I think, young, next gen people wanting to own a farm is a really cool story. People want to keep people in the communities, and I'd angle it. I'd say, hey, I want to stay in this community. I want to own a farm. Here's a photo of me with my kids on our farm we manage, but we want to own a farm, and use that to get attention and get it onto newspapers, because I know newspapers are still really used by retirement age farmers as well. I would employ someone on social media, whether it's full-time or not, but at least someone to help me pull all this together. Part of the content I would create would be to interview retiring farmers. I think that'd be such a beautiful thing, full stop, to interview the 30 retirement age farmers in your district, and even just have that as a document would be a great thing. I think the community would value, but that would get me in front of retiring farmers, and a great excuse to talk to them. And say, hey, I love your farm. What have you been doing? And, I've seen how you do this sort of farming. How does that happen? And how did you start farming? And conversations start. And then I'll have that, and also have that content, which then more people would see me, because I'm doing really interesting interviews with retirement age farmers. I'd ask questions to retirement age farmers or any farmers online. I'd offer help farmers for free within the district by volunteering. And using social media to do that, I think, is powerful. The reason why you can't get access to so many people and work with them is because you're asking for money. And that's what I've found, is if you get rid of money, you can get access to anybody in the world if you want to do it for free. So this idea of volunteering and seeing if you can get access to people online who you want to work with, or headhunt and say, hey, I want to come work and volunteer on your farm doing fencing, opens up doors to have those conversations about sharing ownership. And interviewing farming champions as well. So I could be interviewing anyone in the world. Like, I just send them an email and I can say, hey, I'm doing this. I want to own my own farm. I'm interviewing people how they got on their own farm. And you could interview people in South Africa or China or wherever, and create content. And that's got to lead somewhere, all this content. I'm getting excited just thinking about this. Maybe I will pursue my own farm. So these are the excuses. I was going to bring them up earlier. But I wanted you to just go through what you think you're nervous about. But I think these are things I've thought starting Cultivate Farms and doing it. But I want to put them up here and just help to remove those barriers for you in your mind around what's stopping you getting on social media and creating content. I think this is my last slide as well. One is, who is holding you back? and I know this Gary Vaynerchuk guy talks about this all the time, but maybe you got friends who just are bringing you down and are saying, do not create content. Like I saw you doing your video and you had a typo. That's pathetic. Why would you keep doing it? Like, do you need those friends around? When it's family, it's harder. But think of like, it's a really big question. Like who are you hanging around with that's going to hold you back from realizing, utilizing social media to realize what you want. Social media is a fad. People talk about this all the time. No, it's not. No one's on it, but everyone is on it. It's where attention is. It is not a fad. Who knows in what the next fad's going to be? But we don't have to worry about that. You just have to go where attention is now. It's Facebook. It's Instagram. It's TikTok. Just get on there. I've already tried it, and that probably comes down to persistence. And again, this Gary Vaynerchuk guy says, "Don't come back to me unless you've tried for 3 years. Just keep going. It takes time to build this." Worry about comments, and we talked about this before. Like people are gonna bag you out, and they're probably bagging you out behind your back anyway. And that's what I've had to get my head around. I don't care now. I have this vision I'm going for. I need to create content to make it happen, and hopefully people see that. And I'll get over those comments in time. I don't have anything interesting to say. That I think is completely smashed by documenting your journey and just showing people what you've learned, which is really interesting, really valuable. And again, that should lift up this barrier to you not thinking you got anything interesting to say to, today I did this. I just documenting what I did. It's like writing a diary, and it can open up so many opportunities. I don't have the time. I think that's a big one, absolutely. But I often think I'm watching Netflix a bit as well. So there is time in life when you really want it. No one will listen is another excuse, but I don't think you're here to convince millions of people. You just need 200 people following. I don't know what all your businesses are, but you don't need that many. And when you're doing ads, like a Facebook ad or a LinkedIn ad, you can target the head of Telstra through an ad, or the HR person, manager for Telstra through an ad. You only need to convince a few people, and the right people, and they will listen if if your content's interesting and your business is interesting. And I didn't grow up on the internet, and I think that's a big one as well. I didn't. I was on the verge of growing up when the internet started, but I've had to figure all this out myself. And the best thing in the world is Google. You can Google answers to everything. Like how do you record? How do you edit a Facebook video? How do you export it? There's answers to absolutely everything, and you can learn very quickly to remove those any of those barriers around you don't know how to do something. So that's it. I do love talking about this because it's my life. I used to be working government, and my life's completely changed, and I get to work on this business helping young people and retiring farmers and communities, and the cornerstone is having Facebook. And I just believe in it so much, and hopefully it's been an encouragement to you all, particularly if you're an aspiring farmer as well, that it's possible. It's just how gutsy you want to be and how much you want to put yourself out there. Thank you for your attention and for watching this video. Click here or somewhere to watch more of our videos. If you're new here, please do subscribe. We want more of your attention. We want to get you inspired to get onto your farm. Let's get you farming.